I still remember the day I first created my Facebook profile. I was 13 years old, 8th grade, and my friend Lauren told me to make one. I was still pretty happy with MySpace back when it was still the cool thing to do. But she said, Tayo, this social media site is so cool that it's only for college students, but we should use it too. So I did. My first post was a picture of me and my friends taking a selfie with the photo booth app in a MacBook in the Apple store in the shopping mall because, well, that was the cool thing to do with your friends. Of course, this was normal for me, a teenage kid growing up in Silicon Valley where Google and Facebook and other huge tech companies were right in my backyard. Going to Stanford only increased my exposure to technology. Creating your own startup and trying to be the next Mark Zuckerberg was so popular that I would see jokes on campus with saying, oh my gosh, don't start a startup. We're saving you from yourself. Okay, don't do it. Now, most people assume that since I went to Stanford and I want to be a filmmaker, that I studied film there. I actually studied Spanish, random, I know, and an interdisciplinary major called Science, Technology, and Society with a concentration in information media. I know, it's a bit of a mouthful. My sisters, who majored in traditional fields such as medicine and engineering, like to joke that I pretty much majored in social media. To be fair, I think they thought that because our thank you notes in our graduation program were a maximum 140 characters, but I was still a little insulted. Little did I realize that my courses in digital communication, photography, coding, and more would be so relevant to the current landscape in the film industry, and also to how my friends and I keep in touch. The ways my friends and I communicate now have evolved from phone calls and text messages to visuals such as photos and videos. Just by scrolling through my Instagram and Twitter, I can see not only what my friends are up to, but also celebrities like Beyonce and Michelle Obama. My friends can send me GIFs and memes through iMessage and GroupMe. When I travel, I love to make Snapchat videos so that my friends and people all over the world can see what I'm up to in real time. You know what, actually, let's make one right now. Yeah, this is happening. Okay, yeah, okay. We're gonna make a Snapchat video. Okay, yes, this is happening. Woo, everyone say hi. Woo! Yeah, this is a live Snapchat video. This is real. This is not a stunt. Yes. Woo! Okay, I'm done. Okay. Ooh, I'm going to get a lot of views. Oh, thanks, guys. Now, the ways that we communicate has translated to how we consume content. With HDMI cables and Chromecasts and other wireless connections to our screens, our phones and our tablets become the remote. Because we have all this technology, we can consume and access content whenever and however we want to. So I decided to make a short film about how technology is changing the way we communicate now. Hope you enjoy.
It's amazing that something so small can change how we tell stories. A pixel. When you put thousands of them together, the sky's the limit. Because of these pixels, these tiny pieces of bits and bytes, we can capture life's moments, relive them in the palm of our hands, and share them with the world. But is a movie still a movie with this screen? What about this one? Or that one? Of course it is. This is the brave new world of storytelling, the new frontier. We may not be able to predict the future, but we can always embrace it. So whatever comes, whatever happens, I'm excited to tell my stories and be a part of this new wave of storytelling.
So most of that film, besides the end, was shot in Barcelona, where last month I had the pleasure of participating in Landscape Film Festival, a film festival collaboration where me and 100 filmmakers were split up into 10 teams to make a short film in 2 weeks. And it was a fantastic experience. Our team was from all over the world, London, Spain, Venezuela, and more. I learned so much about the filmmaking process and just by watching my teammates in action. And let me tell you, nothing will improve your Spanish more than working on a Spanish-speaking set. But what was so striking about working with this team of filmmakers was that we were all digital native filmmakers. Now, who exactly is a digital native filmmaker? In my opinion, it's anyone who wants to make films and was introduced to filmmaking primarily in the digital medium. One of the biggest advantages a digital native filmmaker like me has is resources. Today, it's more accessible than ever to learn the craft of filmmaking. With YouTube videos and blogs like No Film School and articles and forums and more, there's just no excuses to just go out and Google what you need to know. In January, I took an online film course hosted by the National Film and Television School, one of the top film schools in the UK. Over the course of 6 weeks, I learned about the whole process of filmmaking through video lectures and short film case studies, all for the grand total of $0. Also, equipment is much cheaper, thus opening the filmmaking space to be more open and democratic. The fact that our team can make such a high quality short film within such a short time frame with the equipment we already had at our disposal is really astonishing and shows how accessible and low cost filmmaking is now. Another example, that short film you saw earlier was shot and edited entirely on my iPad. Now that was a first for me. Usually I use my DSLR, my laptop, but my laptop was broken, so I had to be a little more inventive. And I felt like a huge tourist just like walking around with an iPad like this all day, but I think it was worth it. The fact that I can make a short film with some taps on my screen and then upload it directly to YouTube and Vimeo is really remarkable. Because of these tools and platforms, filmmakers like me can create content, upload it, and find an audience. Right now, there's a huge trend of filmmakers creating their own web series. Some of them have been picked up by TV networks, while others are funded via crowdfunding or available for purchase via on-demand. In Barcelona, I wrote, shot, and edited a comedic web series about students studying abroad in Barcelona. Although we didn't finish a whole season, we just made 2 episodes and some promo videos. It's amazing that with just a camera, my laptop, and some phones to record the audio, I could have my own show. Now, creating your own show and creating content is still difficult. You need to organize and find collaborators and other actors and artists to work with you and support yourself. But right now, there are less excuses to just go out, create, and tell our stories. Right now, I'm writing a screenplay for a feature film that I plan on shooting for a very small budget. It's called 501 Miles, and it's about 2 estranged childhood friends who go on a road trip after college graduation from San Francisco to San Diego. And the fact that I can even fathom shooting a film for so little money shows how technology is empowering storytellers to tell our own stories. As a filmmaker, I want to tell stories where characters are trying to figure out their identity, to figure out what they want in life, or figure out what kind of person they want to be. In 501 Miles, the 2 girls are trying to decide whether they should go the path expected of them or whether they should follow their passions, which is a lot more risky. As someone who grew up practically her whole teenage and adult life with social media, I'm 22 now, so when I turn 23, it'll be 10 years, a decade with social media. I know firsthand how hard it is to establish a strong sense of self. Seeing your Facebook friends and their accomplishments like new jobs and acceptances into prestigious grad schools and relationship milestones on Instagram and Twitter, all this information about our friends and our peers makes us wonder if we measure up. It makes us feel like life is a contest. That feeling, that's something that brings a whole level of insecurity that our grandparents and our parents never had to deal with before. By sharing the parts of ourselves we only want to share with others, we really have to think about how we grapple with that sense of identity and insecurity that comes along with it. And it really affects how we view ourselves in the eyes of others. I also want to tell stories where characters are forced to confront their preconceived notions about people and the world around them, their biases. I especially resonate with stories about characters who are trying to figure out who they are as a person while the outside world tries to label them based on how they look. In the film I'm writing, the 2 girls come from 2 different backgrounds. One is Nigerian American, who is trying to figure out her expectations, especially as the child of immigrants. The other is white, privileged, and has a happy-go-lucky attitude about life, yet she grapples with her sexual identity and doesn't quite know how to deal with romantic relationships, especially after college. And because of social media, we can figure out who we are, and during this trip, they're trying to figure out why they drifted apart in the first place. They have to come to terms with the racial and cultural tensions that caused them to drift apart. As a filmmaker, but especially as an African American woman, it's my priority to tell stories with strong and nuanced female characters and people of color, but also diverse in sexual identity, ability, and more, especially because they're very underrepresented in films today. I believe that these films are important to make, and I want to make sure I tell these stories authentically and not as a stereotype. Because of social media, people are empowered to tell their stories about their experiences of mistreatment, racism, and sexism away from media speculation and distortion. By seeing these accounts firsthand from recent news-breaking events, such as the recent conflict in Baltimore, sexual assault on college campuses, and more, people who may have only had access to one side of the story can now see the issues and discussions from other points of view. Because of social media, because everyone can be a storyteller, stories that may have been silenced or passed over now have a chance to be seen and heard. Now, just because there is a platform, there's a way to make your voice heard, doesn't mean you're always being listened to. For every enlightening article about the reality of race relations and gender discrimination, there's an ignorant response or a racist tweet right back. But at the very least, there's a space to create a dialogue and listen to other perspectives, should people choose to. So, as empowered as I am and excited as I am to write this feature and shoot it, how will I find an audience? Because with all the social media going on, it's really interesting to see what's going on in social media today. As empowered as I am to write this film and shoot it, how will I find an audience? We all know that people are going to movie theaters less now. People are going to see their movies on their tablets and screens, but one of the biggest reasons I wanted to become a filmmaker was the feeling of showing a film to an audience. That wonderful feeling of just showing that, having everyone see what you've made. Like, I really look up to filmmakers like Ava DuVernay and Alfonso Cuarón and Mateo Kassovitz, who use films to engage and inspire and really shed light on issues today. I also really look up to directors whose movies are really entertaining and visually appealing, like Christopher Nolan and Steven Spielberg. I still remember the first time I saw The Prestige when I was 14, and the ending just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool, and I watched that movie so many times. And what's amazing about these filmmakers is that they made their first films with costly and bulky equipment, whereas filmmakers like me are making our first films with DSLRs, camcorders, and sometimes our iPhones and tablets. So as excited as I am about how these digital tools are making the barrier of entry point for filmmakers much easier, because of that, I just don't have that same feeling of gratification when I share my films digitally. Like 2 years ago, when I had a documentary that I shot and edited in London about the Nigerian community there, I had a very small screening. It was just mostly me and my friends and my family and some members of the public. But I still remember that feeling of everyone watching something that I made. And that's something that I wouldn't have had if I had just sent the link out on an email or posted it on YouTube. So yes, I'm making this feature and I'm shooting it, but how will I find an audience? And everyone has digital communication mediums now to just watch films. I need to really think about ways to find an audience and engage with them. How can I do that? At the end of the day, if we filmmakers want people to come to the theater and see our movies on the big screen, we have to be more inventive and entrepreneurial. We have to think out of the box and think about not only how to get our film seen, but also how to capitalize on this digital space to fund our art and our future career. Today, it's more important than ever to add more value to a movie ticket, especially for smaller independent movies. Also, it's way more important to make moviegoing more communal. For example, there are some movies that have live performance screenings where musicians can play the soundtrack alongside the movie, just like the old days where the orchestras would play the film score alongside the movies. For one summer, I saw Beasts of the Southern Wild, where the director and his band played the entire soundtrack of the film, and for a huge audience in an outdoor theater in Brooklyn, and it remains as one of my favorite movie-going experiences. And it was really incredible. But what does that mean for me as a filmmaker? Like, how can I pull this off in the future? Will there even be cinemas anymore, like in the future? And will my future generation and people in my age group and younger, will they just be lazy and just watch films on their screens and tablets and movie theaters will disappear? I really hope not, but in my opinion, as a filmmaker and as a consumer, there is nothing like showing your movie to an audience or watching a movie in a theater. I think it's important to have a healthy balance of both the romanticization and the progressiveness of filmmaking today. On the one hand, we have movie theaters and established recognition in the industry, such as the Oscars and prestigious film festivals. But on the other hand, it's really important to embrace future models and venues for the medium. Yet, however we consume content, there will always be a need for storytellers like me. And that's something technology can't replace. Thank you.